Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are strapping into the cockpit of the sleeping brain. We're going to explore one of the most enigmatic phases of our existence, rapid eye movement sleep,
Yeah,
REM.
right.
We all know sleep is the brain's maintenance cycle, but it's during REM that things get, well, truly bizarre. Our bodies are paralyzed, our eyes are darting around, and our dreams are just vivid, strange, and so often deeply emotional.
Exactly. And for decades, the true function of REM sleep was, one of the great mysteries of neuroscience. We had a pretty good handle on non-REM or NREM sleep,
The deep sleep.
the deep slow wave stage, crucial for basic memory consolidation. But the role of REM, with its wildly active, almost wake-like electrical patterns, it just seemed elusive.
So what's our mission for this deep dive?
Our mission today is to dig into the evidence that suggests REM sleep isn't just passive dreaming. It's an incredibly active, you could say emotionally charged editing suite. We're going to investigate how this rhythmic electrical activity, called Theta activity, in this unique brain state, helps us not just store memories.
But actually change them.
Yes. Actively modulate and maybe even detoxify their associated emotional load.
Okay, so that's a critical distinction. We're moving beyond just simple storage and transfer to active emotional editing, deciding which memories keep their punch and which ones lose their sting. That sounds revolutionary.
It really does. It fundamentally changes how we view the utility of sleep. But to appreciate the, let's call it chaos, of REM, we first have to understand the structure of NREM.
Okay, so lay out the consensus on NREM for us, the boring but important stuff.
Right. NREM is the powerhouse of consolidation. When we're in deep NREM sleep, the EEG shows these high-amplitude, low-frequency electrical waves.
The big, slow, rolling wave.
Exactly. Big, slow, synchronized waves that characterize deep rest, usually around 0.3 to 4 hertz.
Yeah.
This stage is, well, it's universally associated with memory reactivation and consolidation, especially for our declarative memories.
The facts and events of the day?
The facts and events, yeah. The things we encounter every day.
And what are the brain's tools for moving those memories around during NREM?
Well, the mechanism really relies on a neurochemical shift. During NREM, the neuromodulator acetylcholine 8A drops to very low levels.
Okay.
And you can think of HE as the chemical that normally keeps the hippocampus, our temporary holding folder for new memories, busily focused on what's coming in.
So when HE is low,
It essentially disinhibits communication. It opens up the highway between the hippocampus and the neocortex, where our long-term storage happens.
so low HE is the green light, the signal to start the transfer.
Correct. And that transfer isn't just a slow trickle. It happens in these bursts, synchronized by high-frequency activity like thalamocortical spindles and these things called hippocampal sharp-wave ripples, or SWRs.
SWR?
Yeah, these are brief synchronized bursts of electricity that are basically replaying the day's events at, fast forward. They drive those memories out of the temporary folder and into permanent storage in the cortex.
That sounds incredibly structured, very efficient. If NREM is the low AA file transfer stage, then REM sleep, which comes right after, is just the complete opposite.
It's a completely different chemical cocktail. Electrically, REM sleep looks a lot like quiet wakefulness on an EEG. Low amplitude, mixed frequency activity.
But the neurochemistry is where it gets weird.
That's where it's unique. Acetylcholine levels spike dramatically. Sometimes they exceed the levels we find during wakefulness, especially in the hippocampus.
So high AC means the brain is highly alert, almost ready to start taking in new information again.
Exactly. But here's the crucial part. While AT is high, the aminergic neurons, the ones that release modulators like serotonin and noradrenaline, are almost completely silenced.
Noradrenaline, that's like the brain's emotional brake, right? The sensor.
It really is. So this unique state-high HE alertness combined with a near-zero emotional break is what we think generates those notoriously bizarre, vivid, and highly emotional dreams. The emotional center is active, but the system that usually keeps our responses in check is just off.
That contrast right there explains why REM would become the hub for emotional memory. I mean, if the noradrenaline brake is off, the brain can revisit emotional memories without the fear or the immediate physical arousal that they cause during the day.
Precisely. And emotional events, positive or negative, they get remembered more reliably in the long term.
Because they're important for survival.
Crucial for survival and for guiding our future behavior. And the structure that tags those memories for importance is the amygdala, our emotional center.
So how does the amygdala signal that importance?
Emotional memory retention requires the co-activation of the hippocampus, which holds the content, and the amygdala, which provides the emotional tag. Studies show that the level of amygdala activity during the initial event predicts how well you'll recall it later.
And if you damage the amygdala,
You lose the ability to recall the emotional context of events, even if you remember the factual content.
which brings us to the core hypothesis for what REM is doing. This idea known as sleep to forget, sleep to remember, SFSR.
Yes, the SFSR hypothesis. It suggests that REM sleep has this dual function for emotional memories. On one hand, it selectively strengthens the memory of the emotional content, the lesson learned, to make sure it's consolidated.
Okay, so that's the remember part.
That's the remember part.
Mm.
But on the other hand, simultaneously, it modulates or dampens the emotional response. The arousal, the panic, the physical feeling associated with that stimulus.
Give us a practical example of how that would work.
Okay, so imagine you have a scary encounter, like a near-miss car accident. SFSR suggests that during REM sleep, your brain works to make sure you remember the lesson.
The sequence of events, the sound, the visual cues.
Right, so you can avoid that situation in the future. That's the remember.
Mhm.
But it also actively works to lessen the panic, the adrenaline surge, the fear response associated with that memory, so that the next time you drive, you don't have a full-blown anxiety attack. That's the forget the feeling part.
That is a highly specialized job. Is there good behavioral evidence to back this up, this simultaneous strengthening and dampening?
Absolutely. The rodent models here are really compelling. If you deprive rats of REM sleep right after they learn some kind of fear conditioning, their ability to remember that lesson is impaired.
So they forget the important part.
They do. And conversely, higher amounts of REM sleep after training correlate not just with stronger memory, but with greater long-term potentiation LTP in the hippocampus. And that's the fundamental cellular process of strengthening a synapse.
And in humans, we see this with emotional recognition.
We do, yeah. Human studies show REM sleep significantly predicts better post-sleep recognition of emotional content, like negative or positive faces or texts. But crucially, when you look at the autonomic system, the physical response, you see REM sleep is linked to a decrease in stress-related arousal after fear extinction tasks.
Wow.
One study found that only disrupting sleep specifically during REM, not NREM, impaired the successful extinction of those fear responses.
So it really sounds like NREM stores the file, but REM comes in and does the complex editing, specifically on the emotional metadata attached to that file. If REM is the emotional editor, what's the tool it's using? How does it do this precise rhythmic modulation?
That tool is theta activity. Theta is a synchronized oscillating local field potential, basically a powerful rhythmic electrical pulse.
A brainwave.
A brainwave, yeah. It happens between 4 and 10 hertz, depending on the species and the state. And it's a dominant feature in the hippocampus, the amygdala, and the neocortex during both wakeful exploration and REM sleep.
That frequency, 4 to 10 hertz, I've heard of that in rodents or in awake humans who are actively navigating or learning. Is the rhythm a little different in REM?
It is. In human REM sleep, the analogous activity is a bit slower, often around 3 hertz. Sometimes it's called slow theta. And researchers think this might be a necessity because of our larger brain size.
Slower waves to travel longer distances.
That's the hypothesis, yeah. Slower oscillations might be required to keep all those distant regions synchronized.
Okay, so whatever the exact frequency, theta is the conductor's baton. We know it's correlated with high ache in the hippocampus during REM. Why is that specific pairing so important?
Well, it links back to function. High H levels during wakefulness are associated with encoding. That's the process of forming new memory traces and making sure they don't get mixed up with old memories.
I see.
So high H combined with this theta rhythm during REM suggests that REM is also an encoding-like phase. The brain is actively manipulating information, maybe forming new connections between old and new information. It's a stark contrast to NREM's transfer role.
That makes sense. But this next part from the sources has really blew me away. It's how the brain uses the actual timing of that theta rhythm to decide the fate of a specific connection.
This is the mechanism of bidirectional plasticity, and it is remarkably precise. Researchers found that if they stimulate neurons in rats exactly at the peak of the theta wave,
The very top of the wave.
the very top, it induces long-term potentiation, or LTP, synaptic strengthening. You keep the connection, you make the memory stronger.
Okay, and what if they stimulate at the opposite timing?
If they stimulate those same neurons at the trough, the valley of the theta wave, just milliseconds later, it induces long-term depression, LTD.
Wait a second.
It means synaptic weakening.
You are telling me that a millisecond difference in timing, determined by the rhythm of this one wave, decides whether a connection in your brain gets stronger or actively weaker.
Yes.
That sounds unbelievably precise, like a physiological metronome deciding survival value.
It's the ultimate form of modulation. The brain is literally using the phase, the exact moment within the electrical oscillation, to choreograph the memory trace. This precise timing allows the brain to simultaneously strengthen the valuable content of the emotional memory while actively, rhythmically weakening the associated fear response.
It keeps the lesson, but softens the blow.
Exactly.
So this precise rhythm is the key. But how does Theta make sure that all the relevant brain centers, the emotional amygdala, the hippocampus with the facts, the integrative neocortex, are all on the same page, on the same beat?
They achieve this through coherence. Theta activity serves as the driver, linking these regions. So, theta coherence, the synchronization of these rhythms between the hippocampus, amygdala, and prefrontal cortex is what predicts these bidirectional changes in fear memory in animal models.
So they're all humming along on the same frequency, coordinating the edit?
They are literally synchronized. And this synchronization is tied to another classic, visible feature of REM sleep.
Don't tell me the eyes.
Close. It's tied to the PGO waves, Pontine-Geniculo-Occipital waves.
Okay, what are those?
They're large field potentials that start in the pons, travel through a part of the thalamus called the lateral geniculate nucleus, and reach the visual cortex. And it turns out PGO waves, the rapid eye movements, and theta activity all share a common generation mechanism.
And what's their function in this memory editing process?
PGO wave density is critical. Researchers found that a higher density of these waves predicts increased expression of plasticity-related genes in both the hippocampus and the amygdala.
So it all works together.
It's a network. The theta coherence in the limbic system drives the PGO waves, and those waves act as a chemical signal to enhance the actual biological machinery needed for synaptic strengthening and weakening.
Well, let's tie this back to dreaming, the bizarre nature of it. If the neocortex is getting all this highly modulated emotional input, what allows for the strange recombination of ideas we experience in dreams?
It's a perfect synergy of the neurochemistry we talked about.
Yeah.
You have high AC, which suppresses interference from older competing memories in the neocortex, keeps the channel clear.
Okay.
And at the same time, you have the extremely low level of noradrenaline.
Yeah.
Since NA normally suppresses recurrent activation, the pinging back and forth of signals within the neocortex, its absence allows for widespread uninhibited activity.
So the neocortex is highly alert, it's free of interference, and it's allowed to just go wild with recurrent activation.
It's essentially free to recombine and integrate novel memory traces, the ones recently consolidated during NREM, into the vast existing networks of the cortex. This massive unchecked integration and pattern completion is what we experience as the often nonlinear, vivid narrative of our REM dreams.
The sources even suggest REM sleep isn't just one uniform state. They talk about phasic versus tonic REM.
Right, it's not homogeneous. Phasic REM is when you have those bursts of eye movements and PGO waves. That seems to increase the cross-regional synchrony and facilitate this information exchange.
And tonic REM?
Tonic REM is more the background state. It may be mediating what's called pattern separation, reducing interference between similar memories and offloading them from the hippocampus. That allows for generalization and abstraction. So the brain is refining both the specific details and the general rule.
This level of emotional regulation obviously has clear clinical relevance given how crucial emotional processing is for mental health.
Absolutely. There's a strong link between mood disorders and unusual REM sleep patterns. In depression, for instance, REM sleep is often pathologically increased. In PTSD and anxiety, you often see these major disturbances like vivid flashbacks during REM.
So when the brain's emotional editor malfunctions, it directly contributes to these pathologies.
It seems to.
Okay, so we have to address the major counterargument. Critics who suggest REM sleep isn't primarily about emotional memory at all, but maybe just endogenous brain stimulation.
That's a valid point people raise. They often cite the fact that many effective antidepressant drugs significantly reduce REM sleep, sometimes dramatically, but without causing obvious immediate memory deficits in patients.
So they argue it might just be a recovery period from NREM or general brain maintenance.
Right. How does the research community and our sources address that pretty significant counterpoint?
Well, they argue that REM and slow-wave sleep have distinct complementary functions. You can see their inverse relationship throughout the night. It's not just a recovery stage.
And what about the antidepressant effect?
Regarding that, the authors hypothesize that if REM's main function is to optimize our behavior in response to novelty and strong emotion to allow for rapid adaptation, then adults who are relying on older habitual behaviors might not show immediate deficits when REM is suppressed.
They're just relying on their existing, maybe outdated behavioral library.
Precisely. The authors suggest that suppressing REM during early childhood development, when the brain is still building its foundational emotional and behavioral library, would probably yield much more striking fundamental deficits. For an adult, the effects might just be more subtle or delayed.
More about handling future stress than remembering last Tuesday's facts.
Exactly.
So let's bring it all back together. What's the core takeaway about REM sleep for us?
And I think the takeaway is that REM sleep is this chemically distinct, highly demanding neurological state. It uses the precise timing of theta oscillations, that 3 to 10 hertz rhythm, as a conductor, coupled with PGO waves, to orchestrate the emotionally modulated optimization of our memories.
It's deciding, moment by moment, which emotional parts of your day to keep, which to weaken, and how to weave that new knowledge into your personal narrative. And that often results in those strange dreams we have.
It's just incredible to realize the brain is running that level of sophisticated analysis while we're completely unconscious. That mechanism, using the theta phase to decide if a memory gets strengthened or weakened, LTP at the peak, LTD at the trough, it suggests your sleeping brain is basically performing a cost-benefit analysis on your emotional life to prioritize future survival.
You have an emotional accountant working tirelessly while you sleep, deciding which baggage to keep, which to integrate, and which to just jettison entirely.
So if your brain is actively editing your fears and maximizing your lessons tonight, what emotional responses are you unknowingly strengthening or weakening as you cycle through those deep theta waves? We'll leave you with that thought.